attention. They say a life can change in an instant. For Ethan Caldwell, it changed in exactly 12 seconds. What if the most terrifying moment of your life, the one where you face your greatest fear, also puts you face to face with an unexpected miracle? Before we dive into this passionate story of fate and profound transformation, hit that subscribe button, like this video, and tell us in the comments if you believe in miracles. In one instant, Ethan Caldwell was sipping an overpriced espresso on the balcony of his Los Angeles penthouse, idly glancing over a financial report he'd already read twice. The next, his world tilted, spun, and shattered into a million pieces. His 5-year-old son, Alex, was choking. The nanny screamed. Ethan froze for a heart-stopping 2 seconds, his mind a frantic, panicked void. The sound of his porcelain cup shattering on the marble floor was somehow quieter than his own ragged breathing. The boy's face was turning blue. Alex's wide, terrified eyes were locked on his throat. No sound. No air. It was supposed to be a normal Tuesday morning. Now he was watching his son die. Then, suddenly, a woman he didn't recognize was on her knees next to Alex. She had been in the building lobby. He would find out later that she was a pediatric nurse named Olivia Evans, visiting her mother on the floor below. She'd heard the frantic screams from the hallway, burst into the apartment without asking, and dropped to her knees with a terrifying, clinical calm. 911 is on the way, someone sputtered, dialing frantically. But Olivia didn't wait. She positioned herself behind Alex and began the Heimlich maneuver. Quick, hard, focused. 1 thrust, 2, 3. Then, a violent heave. A small, colorful piece of candy hit the polished floor. Alex gasped. He cried. He breathed. The air rushed back into Ethan's lungs. The room erupted in relief, sobering sobs, applause. But Ethan didn't move. He just stared at the woman on the floor, who gently cradled his son's head and whispered, "You're okay, champ. You're safe. You're okay." In that moment, she wasn't just a stranger. She was a miracle. Olivia didn't wait to be thanked. When the paramedics arrived and Alex was declared stable, she calmly gave her name and credentials, scribbled a few concise notes for the emergency team, and stood to leave. Ethan, finally shaking free of his shock, blocked her path. "Wait." She turned with a tired but polite expression. "Yes, Mr. Caldwell." "How do you know who I am?" he asked, surprised. She offered a soft, knowing smile. "You own the building. You're in the news constantly. You donated $1 million to the pediatric wing at St. Jude's last year." He blinked, stunned by her detailed knowledge. She added, "Good cause, poor execution. You didn't visit the wing. You didn't meet the kids. You just signed the check and left." His jaw tightened. "And how do you know that?" "I work there." Olivia turned to leave, a quiet resolution in her posture. He stepped in front of her again, blocking her way. "Let me thank you properly." "You already did." "No," he insisted, his voice raw with a sincerity that even surprised himself. "I mean it. Dinner. Whatever." She paused, then really looked at him. Ethan Caldwell, CEO of Caldwell Global, Forbes cover boy, widower, an emotionally unavailable billionaire with a sharp jawline and an even sharper tongue. "I'm not a story you can turn into a headline," she said. Her voice was flat. "I'm not asking for a story," he replied, his gaze unwavering. Their eyes held for a beat too long, a silent acknowledgement of something more, something undefined. Then she was gone, leaving him alone in the silent apartment, the echo of her words hanging in the air. "What do you think of Olivia's bluntness?" And what is the real meaning behind Ethan's sudden desire to properly thank her? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The next day, Ethan found her. He had his team track down where she worked. Eastbrook Medical Center, Pediatric Trauma Unit. He showed up with an extensive bouquet of flowers, costing more than a month's rent in most Los Angeles neighborhoods, and stood awkwardly in the sterile hallway, waiting for her shift to end. She looked at the flowers, then at him, a dry amusement in her eyes. That's a ridiculous amount of roses. They said it was romantic? Ethan admitted, a slight blush rising on his neck. We aren't dating yet, Olivia shot back, a rare, playful spark in her eye. She shook her head. A small smile played on her lips, but she didn't leave. They started slowly. A lunch in the bustling hospital cafeteria, coffee before her shifts, shared in the quiet city dawn. They traded texts between high-stakes meetings and late-night hospital rounds, not openly flirtatious yet, but filled with a growing, undeniable meaning. She challenged him, calling him out relentlessly when he dodged emotion, when he retreated behind his corporate facade. And somehow, she made him genuinely, openly laugh, in a way no one else could. Alex, his 5-year-old, adored her. He called her by her name. He drew countless pictures of her with imaginary sparkles in her hair, always smiling. She wasn't impressed by his money. She didn't care about his vast reputation. And maybe, just maybe, that was precisely the reason Ethan found himself completely unable to stay away. What profound impact do you think Olivia's presence is having on Ethan and Alex? And what does it truly mean to find happiness after profound loss? Share your thoughts in the comments below. One evening, after Alex was finally asleep, Olivia came over. Not for dinner, not for a date. Just to talk. Ethan poured them both wine, the amber liquid swirling in their glasses. They sat on his penthouse balcony, the city breathing around them, its million lights a distant, shimmering carpet. "Why do you always act like you're okay when you're clearly not?" she asked, her voice soft but direct, cutting through the silence. He looked at her, really seeing her. "My wife, Sophie, died 5 years ago," he said. The words were heavy with unspoken grief. "And I still don't know how to grieve without feeling like I'm betraying her memory." Olivia's expression softened, a shared understanding in her eyes. "I know what it's like to lose someone too soon." "Who did you lose?" he asked, surprised. She hesitated, her gaze distant for a moment. "My brother, Michael, cancer. He was 9. A deep silence settled between them, a quiet testament to a shared loss. "Is that why you became a pediatric nurse?" he asked, the connection dawning on him. "That's why I learned how to breathe again." Later that night, as she stood to leave, a fragile hope in his voice. He asked, "Stay." She turned. "Why?" Her eyes questioning. "What about?" "Because for the first time in a long time," Ethan confessed, his voice raw with vulnerability. "I don't feel like I'm just surviving. I feel like I'm alive." Olivia didn't respond with words. She simply walked to him, closed the space between them, and kissed him. Slow, real, and utterly honest. Peace never lasts long in stories like this. 2 days after their first kiss, Olivia got a call from the hospital board. An anonymous complaint. The voice on the other end said, "Regarding inappropriate boundaries with a patient's family." Ethan was furious. He immediately offered his best lawyers, unlimited money, all his considerable influence. But Olivia turned it all down. "I can fight my own battles, Ethan," she said. Her voice was firm, resolute. "But it's my fault," he argued, his words thick with frustration. "No," she replied, her gaze unwavering. "It's my choice." Her eyes held his, a silent challenge. "But if I lose this job, Ethan, we're done." "Why?" he asked, bewildered. Because I won't let myself become dependent on you again." That night, he lay awake, staring at the polished ceiling of his penthouse, wondering how love could feel so right and so impossible at the same time. Ethan Caldwell had fought wars on Wall Street. He'd faced down ruthless CEOs, challenging senators, and scandal-hungry journalists. But nothing felt as personal or as utterly helpless as watching Olivia walk into a closed-door disciplinary hearing with her career on the line, knowing there wasn't a single dollar he could spend to fix it without making things worse. He waited outside this boardroom for over an hour, pacing the silent hallway, the quiet pressing in on him. When she finally emerged, her face was unreadable, a mask of calm resolve. "Well?" he asked, his stomach tight with fear. "I'm being suspended," she said. Her voice was flat, devoid of emotion. "Without pay, pending further review." "On what grounds?" His own voice was sharp, tinged with fury. "Violation of professional boundaries with a minor patient's parent." "That's absurd! You saved my son!" "I broke the rules, Ethan. I crossed a line." She didn't cry. She didn't raise her voice. She just stood there in the silent hallway, her hands in the pockets of her scrubs, like someone who knew exactly what it costs to be right and still lose everything. "I'll fix this," he said, stepping toward her, reaching out a hand. "No," she replied, her voice softer now, but with an iron will beneath it. "You're going to respect that this is mine to fight," he emphasized, his eyes holding on to his. "I mean it. If you push this, I'll walk away." It was the first time Ethan truly felt her sharp, undeniable edges, not just her kindness or her strength, but her fierce boundaries. She would not be saved, not by him, not by anyone. He watched her walk away, the echo of her footsteps louder than any boardroom silence he had ever endured. What do you think is the true meaning behind Olivia's unshakable boundaries? And why is Ethan struggling so much with his inability to fix things with his power? Share your ideas in the comments below. Alex asked about Olivia that night. "Is Dr. Olivia mad at us?" "No, champ," Ethan lied. The word stuck in his throat. "Is she coming back?" Alex's hopeful eyes pierced right through him. Ethan didn't have an answer, so he lied. "She will." 3 weeks passed. No contact. Olivia had vanished into silence. Ethan buried himself in work, relentlessly trying to forget the curve of her smile, the fresh scent of her shampoo, the way she bit her lip when she was thinking about something complicated. But she was everywhere. In Alex's drawings, where his son invariably added sparkles to super nurse's hair. In the gentle hum of silence that now filled the penthouse after bedtime. In the quiet, deliberate way he had stopped drinking alone. Then, one night, he found a simple envelope slipped under his door. No stamps, no return address. Inside, a single sheet of paper. Typed, "I've accepted a position in San Francisco. It's a pediatric hospice unit. The offer came before all of this. I took it because I felt it was the only place I could still do what I love. I didn't say goodbye because I didn't trust myself to mean it. Take care of Alex, and thank you for making me believe I could still feel something." "Oh!" Ethan sat down heavily, his heart hollowed out by her words. She was gone, just like that. He booked a flight for the next morning, not to chase her, not out of anger or harassment, but just to think, to breathe, to understand. He took Alex with him. They went to the secluded cabin in the Rocky Mountains, a place he hadn't visited since before his wife Sophie died. There, surrounded by dense forests, wrapped in a profound silence broken only by the rustle of pine needles, he began to fall apart. Alex, in his innocent way, asked questions about his mom, Sophie, about Dr. Olivia, about what it meant to go away. Ethan answered him honestly as a father can when his own heart is breaking. On the fourth night after Alex finally fell asleep, Ethan sat outside on the porch swing, looking up at constellations he'd never bothered to notice before. And then, finally, he cried. Not the angry, controlled tears, not the quiet, stoic tears, but the real ones. The kind that cleanse the wounds you've pretended weren't there for years. He cried for Sophie, the love he lost too soon, for Olivia, the hope he'd pushed away, and for the boy inside of him who had never learned how to say, "I need you," until it was far, far too late. What do you think is the true meaning of grief, and how does it change us? And do you believe Ethan's raw honesty with Alex is a step toward his own healing? Share your ideas in the comments below. Meanwhile, back in the city, Olivia settled into her new life. The pediatric hospice unit in San Francisco was smaller, quieter, less chaotic than the trauma unit. Certainly more heartache, but it felt honest, raw, and true. She missed Alex most of all. She dreamed of him sometimes, his small arms around her neck, the way he used to call her Super Olivia. She missed Ethan too, not the billionaire, not the headlines, just the man who brought her coffee at dawn and looked at her like she was the first honest thing he'd seen in a decade. Then, one afternoon, passing a small bookstore near the hospital, she stopped dead. Taped to the front window was a child's drawing. It was Alex's. She recognized the art style instantly. The crooked trees, the whimsical spaceship, the bright, uninhibited colors, and underneath, in shaky block letters, "To Olivia, come home." Her chest flew open, a wave of emotion so powerful it stole her breath. She went inside the bookstore, heart pounding, scanning every face. He wasn't there, neither was Alex, nor Ethan. But behind the counter, the clerk smiled knowingly. "Are you Olivia?" She nodded, barely holding herself together. The clerk handed her an envelope. Inside, a single, handwritten letter. "You told me not to chase you, so I didn't. But I needed you to know. Alex hasn't stopped asking about you, and I haven't stopped hoping you'll forgive me for being someone you had to walk away from. We're at the cabin in the Rockies for the next 2 weeks. The address is on the back of this letter. No pressure, just an open door. With love, E." She stood in the bookstore for one long, endless moment. The letter clutched in her hand, her pulse trembling, her heart dormant for so long. Slowly, painfully, waking up. What do you think is the true meaning of an open door when so much has been lost? And how will Olivia overcome her fear to walk through it? Share your ideas in the comments below. Olivia didn't decide right away. She held the letter for a full day. She kept it in her coat pocket, unfolded it a dozen times, reread it every time the fear in her chest grew too strong. She told herself it wasn't a good idea, that going to the Rockies would only reopen something that was already bleeding. But there was a drawing taped to the front window of a bookstore 1,000 miles away from Los Angeles, done by a 5-year-old boy who still called her his favorite person. And that mattered. It mattered more than pride, more than fear, more than the pieces of her heart she had tried to mend alone. She packed a small bag, told her new supervisor she needed a few days, booked a last-minute flight to Denver, rented a car, and drove into a fog-shrouded countryside with the windows down and the heat on full blast. The Rockies were colder than she remembered. Or maybe she just felt smaller inside the vast, silent murmur. The cabin was tucked away at the edge of a dense pine forest, perched above a still, mirror-smooth lake. When she stepped onto the porch, suitcase in hand, she didn't know what to expect. Ethan opened the door before she could even knock. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The air was thick with unspoken emotions. Then Alex's voice, a whoop of pure joy, broke the song. "Olivia," He launched himself at her legs, nearly toppling her over. She knelt, hugging him so tightly he squealed with glee. "I missed you," her voice muffled against his shoulder. "I missed you too, champ," she replied, tears welling in her eyes. Ethan watched her from the doorway, one hand on the frame, as if needing to anchor himself against the surreal reality of her return. "You came," he said softly, his voice full of a raw, pure hope. Olivia stood, nodding once. "You said there was an open door. There always will be." That first night, they talked a little. Alex proudly showed her his new drawings. Olivia helped him with a complicated puzzle, their heads bowed close together. Ethan cooked badly, but she ate every bite, grateful for the simple domesticity. He built a fire in the fireplace, and they sat there in a silence. The kind of silence that feels earned, a comfort born of shared vulnerability. Later, after Alex went to bed, Olivia walked out onto the porch, drawn by the quiet beauty of the moonlit forest. Ethan followed her. His presence was a warm, reassuring shadow. "You didn't have to come," he said. "I know. Why did you?" She looked out at the towering trees, her gaze distant. "Because I couldn't stop hearing your son's laugh in my dreams, and because your letter didn't ask for forgiveness. It just offered a door." Ethan swallowed, his throat tight. "And will you give me forgiveness?" "Not all at once," she replied softly, turning to face him. "But I wouldn't be here if I didn't want to try." They talked for hours, about everything. And nothing. Ethan told her about Sophie's favorite song, a melancholy Chopin piece she used to play. Olivia told him how she still kept Michael's worn-out baseball glove in her closet. They didn't touch. They didn't need to. Just sitting next to each other felt like enough. The next morning, Olivia woke to the intoxicating smell of pancakes and the sound of laughter. She followed the joyful noise to the kitchen. Alex was on a stool, perched precariously, trying to flip pancakes with Ethan's help. Batter was everywhere, on the counter, on their clothes, even on Alex's cheek. "Dad says he's trying to be a homemaker," Alex announced proudly. Ethan grinned, a smear of flour on his nose. "Failing spectacularly." Olivia smiled, a soft, genuine smile that reached her eyes. "You're not failing." He knew it. They stayed for 4 days, allowing the quiet solitude of the cabin to enfold them, healing invisible wounds. On the third night, with the fire in the fireplace burning low, Ethan handed her a wrapped package. "I wanted to get you something." His voice was soft. "But it's not jewelry or flowers or anything that costs more than $15. Inside, nestled simply, was a leather-bound journal. The first page read, "Things I never said but should have." It was filled with short, raw entries, moments, feelings, deep regrets, and fragile hopes. The last page was blank except for one line at the top. "If you are reading this, I love you." Olivia traced the words with her fingers, holding her breath. "I'm scared," she whispered, the honesty a painful admission. "Me too," he replied, his gaze steady, mirroring her vulnerability. "But I've lived enough years building empires. I want to spend the rest of them building something real." She looked at him, truly seeing the fervent desire in his eyes, the man beneath the polished facade. And this time, she didn't hold back. She leaned in and kissed him, slowly, deeply, as if she had been waiting her entire life to be kissed back. What profound change has taken place in Ethan's priorities? And how does Olivia's courage inspire him to build something truly meaningful? Share your ideas in the comments below. That night, after Alex was asleep, tucked securely into his new bed at the cabin, Ethan pulled a small velvet box from the nightstand drawer. Olivia caught her breath. Her heart flipped over. "No," he said quickly, guessing her thought, a soft smile on his lips. "Not that." He opened the box. Inside, glinting softly, was a single silver key. "The cabin?" she asked, bewildered. "The key to the next chapter," he clarified, his voice filled with a quiet promise. "Wherever we write it." She took it, closing her hand around the small metal shape, feeling the immense weight of its symbolism. "I'm ready," she whispered. They didn't rush back to Los Angeles. They let the forest hold them a little longer. They let the stillness spread until it morphed into a deep, healing peace. They read stories by the crackling fire. They cooked badly and laughed loudly, their joy echoing through the wooden beams. They fell in love, not like a sudden, violent crash, but like a sunrise. Slow, sure, undeniable, warming them from the inside out. They returned to Los Angeles in early spring, the city shedding its winter skin under a haze of early buds and golden light. Olivia moved into Ethan's penthouse, not because he asked her to, but because one night she brought a small bag and just never took it back. Her scrubs started showing up in his laundry. Her favorite mug claimed a spot next to his on the kitchen shelf. And Alex, his 5-year-old, started referring to her room as Mom's room, without hesitation or instruction. The word terrified Olivia. That weight, that profound expectation. But it also warmed her, because he meant it genuinely, naturally. And Ethan never corrected him. He just smiled, a quiet, reverent expression, as if he couldn't believe this precious second chance had miraculously landed in his lap. Olivia went back to work, part-time, at a non-profit children's clinic downtown. It wasn't the high-stakes pediatric trauma unit she'd left behind, but it felt good. It felt clean. It felt impactful. And most importantly, it was entirely her own. She made her own rules this time. She drew her own lines. Her identity was no longer dependent on a hospital ID or defined by sacrifice. She was meticulously building a life, one with boundaries, one with balance. Then came the gala, a prestigious charity event for pediatric mental health, hosted at one of Ethan's swanky downtown properties. He insisted Olivia attend, not just as his date, but as the keynote speaker for the evening. "They asked for someone who has lived it on both sides," he said, his eyes sincere. "And you're the only person I trust with that kind of truth." Olivia hesitated. Public speaking wasn't her thing. The spotlight wasn't her thing. Standing in front of a ballroom full of powerful billionaires, slick politicians, and impossibly elegant, perfectly coiffed women was most definitely not her thing. But she said yes anyway, because growth, she knew, often comes wrapped in discomfort. That night, she wore a navy blue satin dress and borrowed courage that shimmered like the fabric. Ethan watched her from across the vast, glittering room, as if he were seeing something truly sacred. His gaze unwavering, filled with a deep reverence. What do you think is the true power of sharing one's authentic story? And how will Olivia's vulnerability resonate with such a powerful audience? Share your ideas in the comments below. Olivia took the stage. Her navy satin dress shimmered under the bright lights. Her voice trembled for only the first 5 seconds, a fragile, human tremor. Then, she anchored herself, finding strength in the unwavering looks from Ethan and Alex in the front row. "I'm not here to tell you about statistics," she began. Her voice was steady and clear. "You can read those in the program. I'm here to tell you about the moments in between the emergencies, the quiet heartbreaks, the impossible choices, the kids who make it, the ones who don't, and the people who carry them anyway." A deep silence fell over the room, held like a collective breath. "I've been in trauma rooms. I've held hands through chemo. I've walked out of hospital rooms knowing the next time I walked in, there wouldn't be a child in the bed. But I've also seen miracles. I've seen healing, and I've seen what love can do when it walks in during the worst of it, and it stays. Her eyes drifted to Ethan, a silent, powerful acknowledgement passing between them. Healing doesn't always come in hospitals. Sometimes it comes in people. The room erupted as she finished, a wave of applause and emotional release. Ethan was the first one on his feet, his face radiant with pride. And afterward, as she came off the stage, shaking and breathless from the raw emotion she had just poured out, he pulled her close and whispered, "I have never been prouder of anyone in my life." But the next morning, everything changed. A media outlet published a poisonous headline, "Billionaire's girlfriend accused of unprofessional conduct in pediatric unit." Someone had anonymously leaked the original complaint. The suspension, the board hearing, the details were twisted. The facts were distorted. Anonymous quotes from hospital insiders claimed favoritism, manipulation, and blurred ethical lines. It was ugly and spread like wildfire. Ethan's PR team went into immediate overdrive, issuing furious denials, statements, and legal threats. But the damage was done. Olivia's nonprofit clinic received dozens of angry messages, parents pulling their kids from programs, donors threatening to pull their support. She was publicly called a fraud, a gold digger, just another headline. What do you think was the most painful accusation Olivia faced? And why? And how will she fight against such public defamation? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Ethan wanted to burn it all down. His rage was monumental, but Olivia wouldn't let him. "I fought to be someone I could be proud of," she said. Her voice was quiet but firm. "I'm not losing that now, just because people are louder than the truth." "I can protect you," Ethan insisted, his fists clenched. "I'm not asking for protection," she replied, meeting his gaze. "I'm asking you to believe me." He did. Of course he did. But this wasn't about believing. It was about power. And Olivia was done letting hers be taken from her. She held a press conference, alone. She stood in front of the cameras in a simple gray blazer. No makeup, no handlers. Just her. "I am not perfect," she said. Her voice was unwavering. "But I am honest. I've spent my life walking into rooms that people run from. I have lost my patience. I have made mistakes. But never, not once, have I ever exploited a child for personal gain. And I most certainly did not fall in love with a man for his bank account." She paused, her eyes scanning the faces of the journalists, holding their gaze. "I fell in love with him because he made me feel like I was more than what I had survived. And I will never apologize for that." When she finished, the room was silent, completely quiet. Then someone asked, "Do you regret the relationship?" Olivia looked directly into the camera. Her integrity shone through. "No," she said, "because he and his son reminded me that love can be real even after the worst happens, and I will never apologize for that." By nightfall, the tide had turned. The vicious story had been reversed. An outpouring of support flooded in. Letters, donations, heartfelt apologies. The clinic reinstated her full-time. The hospital board issued a public apology. The people who mattered knew the truth. That night, as the city lights twinkled below them, Ethan took Olivia's hand, pulling her out onto the roof of their building. "You didn't just save Alex," he said. His voice was thick with emotion. "You saved me, too." He got down on one knee. A simple, heartfelt gesture. No velvet box. No meticulously planned speech. Just a small gold band held between two fingers, shining softly in the dim light. "Marry me, Olivia Evans." Olivia caught her breath. A choked laugh escaped her lips. Tears streamed down her face. "Say it again," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Just once, so I know it's real." "Marry me," he repeated, his voice unwavering, filled with absolute certainty. She nodded, a single tear of joy tracing a path down her cheek. "Yes, I will." Ethan let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding, sliding the ring on her finger before pulling her into the deepest, most honest kiss of his life. And in that moment, as their lips met, he knew that he had finally found something worth more than all the money in the world. Their wedding a year later was a dream, not because of a grand venue or extravagant details, but because it was real. When Olivia walked down the aisle, her eyes fixed on his, Ethan knew he had never been more sure of anything in his life. But beyond the wedding, what mattered most was what they built together. With Olivia's fierce passion and Ethan's immense resources, they launched the Caldwell Evans Initiative, a program dedicated to helping young women build their careers in business, providing them with the mentorship and opportunities that Olivia once fought so hard to earn on her own. Their days were filled with a deep purpose. Their nights were filled with laughter, quiet conversation, and a love that grew deeper with every shared breath. And every morning, when Ethan woke up next to the woman who had completely changed his life, he knew he had finally found something money could never buy: happiness, unshakable love, and a future that was worth everything. They spent their honeymoon in Italy. Alex came too, of course. It wasn't a conventional start to a marriage. But then, neither of them had lived conventional lives. They walked cobblestone streets in Florence, shared sticky gelato in Venice, and danced barefoot under the stars in the gardens of a small villa overlooking the coast. Olivia laughed more in those 2 weeks than she had in the last decade. Her joy was a symphony that Ethan memorized in quiet. And at night, with Alex asleep in the next room, they whispered promises to each other under soft sheets and open windows. Not perfect, but real. Always real. What did you think of Olivia's speech at the press conference? Do you believe love and honesty can triumph over power and money? Share your opinion in the comments, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the end of this amazing story. This is the final part of their story. Then the call came. One afternoon, back in Los Angeles, as the city groaned under the oppressive summer heat, Olivia walked into her clinic for a regular shift and was met by her director. "There's something you should see," the woman said, handing her an unmarked envelope. Inside, a printed draft of an article. Unpublished. The title screamed, "The Nurse, the Billionaire, and the Other Son." The article claimed that Ethan had a second child, a son born from an affair during his marriage to Sophie, now living abroad. The text insinuated that Olivia had only agreed to marry him after discovering this information, as part of a quiet agreement to keep the story from going public. It was a lie, vicious and precise, but it felt deeply personal because someone had been digging. Too deep, too close. That night, Olivia asked him, "Ethan, is there anything I don't know?" He looked at her, stunned. "No," he said slowly. "There's no other son. There's no hidden life, I swear." His voice was quiet. "Then why does this feel so specific?" He sat down, then exhaled something heavy, a truth held captive for years. "There was someone, after Sophie died. It wasn't serious, but she told me she was pregnant a few weeks before she disappeared. I hired a private investigator. She had left the country. I never confirmed anything." He looked up, his eyes raw. "I haven't told anyone, not even my lawyers, because I didn't want to chase ghosts." Olivia stood still. "Ethan, if there's even a chance." "I know." Silence filled the room. Then she asked, her voice low, "What would you do if it were true?" He didn't hesitate. "I'd find him. I'd bring him home." The story leaked within days, not the full, drafted article. but a headline. A whisper. A grainy photograph of Ethan, leaving a building he hadn't stepped into in years. The media ran with it. Reyes scandal. Buried by marriage. Olivia kept her head down. She went to work. She loved Alex, but she felt the shift. On the street, in the grocery store, even at the clinic, where some parents looked at her as if they weren't sure whether to admire or judge her. Ethan remained publicly silent, fiercely protecting Olivia. Privately, he searched. Within a week, he had a name. Leo. 6 years old, living in Marseille, France, with a woman who had changed her name and refused to have contact with anyone from her past, and a DNA test confirmed it. He was Ethan's son. Olivia read the report in silence. Then she looked at Ethan. Now what? I'm going to get him. I'm bringing him home. She nodded. I'm coming with you. Marseille was warm and quiet. The streets buzzed with summer markets and music, but Olivia could see the tension in Ethan's shoulders as they stood outside the small yellow house on the hillside. The door opened slowly. The woman there was thinner than she was in the photo, tired in the eyes, wary, and behind her, a boy. Dark curls, large, serious eyes. He looked just like Alex. Ethan took a step forward. I'm not here to fight with you. I just want to meet him. The woman studied him. Then, after a long moment, she stepped aside. And for the first time, Ethan knelt before the boy and said, Hello, Leo. I think I might be your dad. Leo didn't say anything, but he didn't run. And that was enough to start. They stayed in France for 2 weeks. Olivia watched as Ethan slowly built trust with a child who had only known his shadows. They played cards, kicked a soccer ball, talked about space and animals and American breakfasts. Leo didn't call him Dad, not yet. But when they said goodbye at the airport, the boy ran after Ethan and hugged him tightly. Will I see you again? He asked. Ethan knelt. I promise. Back in Los Angeles, Olivia tucked Alex into bed. He looked up at her with sleepy eyes. Can I still stay with you forever? He asked, his voice small. Olivia kissed his forehead. Always. But that night, as she lay next to Ethan, he whispered something to her in the dark. Do you ever think this is too much for you? Olivia turned to face him, her heart overflowing. No, she said. I think life finally stopped taking and started giving. He took her hand under the covers, and I think we're just getting started. 6 months later, the Los Angeles apartment felt different. Louder. Warmer. Lived in. Leo was moving in. It had taken time, months of paperwork, therapy, meetings with lawyers and mediators. But Ethan had been patient, gentle, present, and Leo had responded. He still didn't call Ethan Dad, but he called him when he had a nightmare, and that meant more. Olivia, meanwhile, had become the quiet, to steady center of the household. She didn't push. She listened. She gave Leo space, and he, in turn, gave her his cautious trust. Alex adjusted quickly, faster than anyone expected. He told everyone he had an extra brother, and he liked that Leo was good at Legos, but bad at Mario Kart. The boys were different. One loud and imaginative, the other cautious, careful. But somehow, they beautifully worked, just like the two people raising them. Olivia returned to her clinic position full-time. But this time, it wasn't about proving anything. She focused on community programs, bringing vital care to kids without access. She started a scholarship in her late brother Michael's name. Ethan matched every donation, but only after asking her permission. She had earned that kind of respect. He already knew what she was doing. In late fall, as the leaves fell and the holidays approached, Ethan planned something quiet. No press, no spectacle. Just family. He took Olivia back to the cabin in the Rocky Mountains for a weekend. Just the two of them. They hiked, they talked, they held each other. And on the final night, under the canopy of 1,000,000 stars, he surprised her with a second ring. Simple, elegant, engraved inside with the words, "Not because I lost, but because I found." Olivia didn't cry this time. She just smiled. She kissed him slowly and whispered, "Forever." They didn't need a second wedding. They had a second life. And that was enough. Months later, Olivia discovered she was pregnant. She sat with the test in the bathroom for 20 minutes. Stunned. Not scared. Just overwhelmed with pure joy. Ethan walked in, saw her face, and immediately knelt down. "Are you okay?" he asked. She nodded silently. Then she handed him the test. His eyes went wide, then filled with tears. He held her for one long, quiet moment, whispering, "You're amazing," over and over, until she believed it too. They told the boys together. Alex whooped with delight, throwing his arms around them both. Leo didn't say anything at first. He just stood there in silence. Later that night, Olivia found him sitting alone on the stairs. "Are you okay?" He looked up. "I don't know how to be a big brother." She sat next to him. "Alex didn't know either. I didn't when I got my brother. You don't have to be perfect, Leo. You just have to be you. That's enough." He leaned against her shoulder. "Do I still get to stay?" Her throat tightened. She looked him in the eyes, her voice filled with unshakable love. "You're not going anywhere." When their daughter was born, they named her Eleanor, after Olivia's mother. Leo held her first. Alex sang to her, off-key but full of love. Ethan cried more than anyone. Tears of pure, unadulterated joy. And Olivia just watched the life she never imagined unfold around her. Piece by piece, like the last perfect fit of a complex puzzle. One night, years later, Olivia stood in the hallway outside the kids' room. Eleanor had just fallen asleep in Ethan's arms. Leo was in the living room, reading aloud to Alex, and the whole house was lit with the kind of soft, golden light that only exists when love has earned its place, when a family is truly, deeply home. Ethan came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist, pulling her gently back against his chest. "You okay?" he asked. She leaned into him, utterly at peace. "I'm better than okay. I'm alive." He smiled, kissing the top of her head. "I never did thank you." "For what?" she whispered. "For saving Alex, for saving me." She turned in his arms. Her eyes met his. "I didn't save you, Ethan. You let yourself be saved." Outside, the snow began to fall. Soft, silent, real. And inside, their life went on. Messy, beautiful, unscripted, true. Built not from perfect beginnings, but from second chances. Ethan Caldwell once thought success was everything, that power, wealth, and control were all that mattered. But then came Olivia Evans, the woman who proved him wrong. She wasn't just another employee, not just a fleeting distraction. She was his greatest challenge, his greatest lesson, his greatest love. And in the end, it wasn't power or money that changed his life. It was her. Now they are together, not just as husband and wife, but as partners in life, in love, and in purpose. Because love isn't just about finding someone, it's about choosing them every single day. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Turn on notifications so you don't miss another heartwarming and emotional story. Because sometimes, the most unexpected stories lead to the most unforgettable love. Love has the power to change everything, if we are just brave enough to let it.